desperate for time alone with Amber. He'd been in heaven for the past fortnight, cloistered aboard the Katipo with her. He utterly adored her, and had since they'd met when they were both 4 years old, and she'd pushed him over on the sand at Paihia. Admittedly, he'd cried then, but after recovering from the indignity, he'd been charmed by her, and had remained charmed ever since. Now, Kitty suspected, his infatuation had increased, fed by lust as he grew older. They had so much in common, both orphaned at a young age, and both children of Maori mothers and Pakeha fathers. No one knew who Amber's real father was. Tahi had been Kitty's uncle, the miserable and unlamented Reverend George Kelleher, whose moss-covered bones had lain undiscovered for years in a cave near Kororareka. And while Tahi felt he knew his mother, why, through Haunui's frequent stories, Amber knew very little about her birth mother. The poor mad woman had abandoned her, and as far as Amber was concerned, Kitty and Rian were her parents, and had been since they adopted her. Kitty knew from years of personal experience that 2 weeks with someone on a schooner was hardly time spent alone, so the prospect of an afternoon in Sydney with Amber would be, for Tahi, extremely inviting. "Haunui, perhaps you better go as well," Rian suggested. Tahi hid his disappointment well, but Haunui was also aware of the massive flaming torch his mokapuna carried for Amber. "Can't. Got business, eh?" "What about Israel?" Amber asked. Haunui opened his mouth, then shut it again. "Israel?" Kitty remarked. "Do you really think he'd be suitable?" "Why not? He's tall for his age and looks older. Please, Ma, Pa," Amber added. "That's 2 chaperones. Surely that's plenty." Kitty glanced at Rian. They did get on very well, the 3 youngsters. They'd been as thick as thieves for the last fortnight, and Israel had matured a lot lately. He was no longer the scrawny, smart-mouthed, ginger-haired waif Rian had taken on as ship's boy early in 1855. He'd shot up in height, was filling out, had learnt some manners, and it seemed that hard work had knocked a fair bit of the cheek out of him. And much to Kitty's relief, it appeared that the puppy-like devotion Israel had once had for her had waned, though on occasion she worried that he'd transferred it to Amber, as he did tend to follow her around the ship like a lost soul. On the other hand, perhaps he was just lonely for company of his own age. In his eyes, the rest of the crew must seem ancient. "They're young," she said. "Go on, let them have a bit of fun." Rian stared at her for a moment, sighed, then bellowed at a deafening level, "Israel! Get down here!" Israel Mitchell trotted along from the ship's stern, clearly wondering what he'd done wrong. "You and Tahi are escorting Amber into town to visit Wong Bao," Rian informed him. Israel looked delighted. "I expect you back by—" Rian opened his watch and checked the time. 5 o'clock this afternoon. You are her chaperones. Do you understand?" Behind her father's back, Amber rolled her eyes. "Yes, sir," Israel replied smartly. "Do you understand?" Rian barked at Tahi. "Yes, sir." "You do not let her out of your sight. You do not allow her to speak to anyone but Bao. And you do not go to the pub. Understand?" Vigorous nodding from Tahi and Israel.